Next build lined up is going to be a growth chart. The customer's ordered, so got it laid out, and I'm going to be putting my marks in, my inch marks, with this template I purchased online. Um, this got from 0 to 12. So I'll lay this on the board, and I will trace out the inch marks, and then I will get my router, and I'll route into each inch mark, make the inches and the lines, and then the kid's name is going to go down the side here, and it'll be stained in natural wood stain. The letters will be purple as ordered, and the tick marks will be black. So I'm going to now mark all these down through here. Then I get ready to route the markings out. The numbers I ordered look like this. The stencil, of course, I'll lay it alongside from each inch and have it marked that way. There's a little bit bigger letters than I used to use, but I like them a lot better. So I will stencil out, and I will draw all of them out and stencil out. I will carve those out with the router, and then I'll paint this thing black, sand over it, so the excessive black will come off, but the black will stay in the inch marks and the numbers. And the name I'll write on the stencil, make a stencil on the Cricut machine inside. Then I will make my stencil, lay it out, and paint over with the purple. And I won't engrave the letters. I'll just be painting them onto the board. So I'm going to go ahead and do the inch marks now and get started. All right, I got all my marks made. Got the letters stenciled out. Now I'm going to get my Robbie router with a little sharp bit with the fine bit in it. I'll go ahead and do around the lines, and then I'll come back with a larger bit and knock out the rest of the pieces in the side of the line. This will take you a little while. This is probably the most time-consuming part of the chart is carving into the tick marks and the numbers. But getting ready to get started. All right, got all the carvings carved out with the router. Now I'm going to sand this thing down to get all the little bit of the loose, fraily parts out, and then I'll go ahead and spray black, and then I'll sand the overspray off. All right, here we go, guys. I will let this dry for a while, and then I'll go back and sand with 60 grit paper, sand over those of the black overbleed there and on the edge there, and get all that off, and then I can start getting ready to put the name down the side. All right, got all the black sanded off of it now to where the numbers are just engraved, and the black sticks in there. Of course, I sanded all the overspray off. I've already put a coat of pre-stain on it. Now I'm fixing to stain it in a natural stain because he wants it to look natural, of course. And then last step would be to make my stencil, put the child's name down through that way, and then that'll be a little bit longer of a task because I got to cut the stencil and make the letters, and of course stick the stencil on there and do all that good stuff. But this is all I'm going to do for today. I'll wrap this up after I put a coat of stain on it. And now time for the stencil. This here, I'm getting the transfer tape put on the stencil, the last name. Get ready to transfer the stencil over to the growth chart. All right, got this thing ready to transfer over to the chart, pulling the backing off the vinyl stencil. Gonna lay this thing down. It's got the transfer tape over it still, so I'm gonna line it down, get it lined up with the first name. Make sure it's nice and smooth, no air bubbles, and no gaps between the stencil and the vinyl itself, so that there won't be any bleed through from the paint or overbleed when I put the paint on. Roll that with my little roller here to get all the bubbles out. Get this thing ready to paint. This is a little bit of a tricky part now. I'm gonna pull the transfer tape off the stencil without pulling the stencil off the wood. So this is some good vinyl commercial tape here. So now I'm getting ready to use a sample of purple paint because the manual's purple on the lettering. So I picked up this sample at Lowe's just to do a sample one time. I had it left over, so I found it in the shop and didn't have to go buy any purple paint, so that worked out pretty well. So I get my little cheap chip brush now. They get from Harbor Freight. They get a case of them, 24 brushes for $12.99, I think it is. They're one-time use, and I just use these brushes pretty often. So I'm gonna put the paint on now over the letters. I'm gonna lay it out pretty good, pretty thick. So I want to do 2 coats. So I'm gonna lay it out real thick without getting it off the stencil onto the ruler. But several coats of this, brush over it a little bit, and then when I get ready to peel the stencil off the wood, I'll wait till it almost near drying, not totally dry, but still close to being dry. Because if it dries completely, sometimes if I peel the stencil off, it'll pull the paint with it because the paint's dry to the stencil, it's dry to the wood, so it'll pull both off. So I wait, let it get a little bit saturated a little bit, and just as it's getting ready to dry, I start to go ahead and pull the stencil off. And that's the part I'm doing now. I got a little weeding tool in my hand there that helps me pull the vinyl back a little bit so I can get a grip on it and sort of pull it with my hands real slow, just to make sure I don't want to yank it, just to make sure the stencil slips out of my hand and lands on top of the letter and it'll smear it a little bit. So I do this kind of slow, and then my little weeding tool that I have in my hand there, in between the A, sometime in between the block letters, the stencil, like as you see right there, all of it didn't come off. So I get my little weeding tool and I'll pick at it and get the rest of that stencil out of there without messing up the letter, because the letters are not completely dry, but they're wet. They're wet enough to where it would smear if I accidentally hit it with my hand or anything. And this is pretty much the completed project as far as the lettering goes. I'll put polycrylic over it, a couple coats, and it'll be ready to go.